Hello, world. Welcome to the Millennial Outliers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Deal, with my partner in crime, Tyler Ardron. Ty Guy, what's the word?
Yo, what's going on, birthday boy?
Big 3-7, man. Getting old. That 40 is creeping in. It's getting a little crazy. Not loving it, but tis life.
Just a number.
Yeah. Well, friends, we have an amazing episode for you today. I have a good friend of mine, Mark Singer, who's our partner at Newton One Advisors. He's going to drop a lot of cool gems on us. Super intelligent guy, very high level. So we'll get into some finance things down the road. But, you know, why I wanted to have Mark on, great family man. He was also an athlete, as much as he kind of hates me talking about it. Captain at Toledo football. Safety. We met, as most of our guests, ironically, through sports. So we actually, on the golf course, not basketball, which was, you know, the regular for most of our other guests. But Mark brings, you know, a different perspective to business. It's a lot of things that we overlook, especially as individuals. And, you know, he's just an amazing person doing things, another younger guy who's a hustler. So wanted to have him on, tell a little bit about his story, how he got to where he is today. And then we're going to, you know, get into, you know, some of the insurance parts and benefits that he helps with. So, Mark, first off, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Justin, thank you for having me. Tyler, thank you for having me. I can't say it enough, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, but your setup is fantastic. As a fellow podcaster, you guys really do a great job. And I know a lot of that goes to Joe, so I may have to talk to Joe following this.
Absolutely. Joe's
this,
the man.
recording.
Sweet recordings, friends. Anybody needs that, that's the plug. But Mark, why don't let's jump into, so we've been friends for a little while, but you reached out when you had saw the Mama's Boy podcast. And you had shared some things with me. So why don't we jump into, tell us a little bit about like your upbringing, childhood, and you know, just maybe some things you had learned from that.
Yeah. Man, kick it right off with
right in the field.
Yeah, right in there.
Take us back, nostalgia.
No, that's a good thing. And you and I, we talked a bunch about, you know, doing a podcast. And I believe our podcast, Newton Knowledge Podcast, we were on our 12th or 15th episode, and you said you were starting yours. So naturally, I was very intrigued due to our relationship. So after I just randomly picked it, the Mama Boys one. I was like, this may be interesting, and I loved it. It was really it really hit home with me because I have a lot of mentors and people I look up to professionally, spiritually, and growing up in my household, family wasn't the biggest cornerstone, I would say. It wasn't bad. It was just different. And growing up, you think that's all there is. This is how everything is based off how you're brought up. And my mother has issues. That being said, it really made me look and say, well, what do I look at or what do I want in a wife and hopefully a mother of my child, which we have too. And it almost gave me the blueprint of what I don't want. In turn, allowed me to say, well, what do I want? And my wife Brianna, we've been married going on 8 years. She's been a rock star, and in terms of being a mother, she's everything I know that my mom would have wanted to be, and hopefully one day can be. But it really hearing both of your moms on the show, man, I want to meet them. They sound like absolute killers, especially in the business world. So that's just something that was foreign to me. And I've dealt with a ton of women who are absolutely phenomenal when it comes to the business aspect, but not one that was so close to home, such as you having your two moms to really learn from and get things out of. So. Yeah,
and it is so important. I think, you know, the big takeaway there is you don't always know what you want, but knowing what you don't want is equally as important, right? Because there's so many lessons that we learn from the examples, and we talk about this, it's your decisions, not your situation, that dictates the quality of life, right? So you came from a situation that maybe wasn't ideal, but you took from that, all right, I'm going to make these decisions, I'm going to look for these attributes, I need this kind of a partner to make the life that I want, because I know, seeing some of the past things, what could be and how it might not be the best environment to raise kids in and to grow a business and to just grow as an individual, right? Because I think, you know, we've both done 75 hard, Have you done it as well?
I haven't. You pitched me it on the golf course when we initially met, and you said you don't drink for 75 days, and that's when I stopped listening.
That's it's funny. That's for most people. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at with that is, I tell people a lot of times, like, it's tough to just do it as you. Like, you kind of have to get your partner to buy in.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's this whole growth in like mentality and the physicality of you, and you can almost like separate yourself from your partner if your growth mindset is going, your body's changing, like all these things happen, and they're kind of still where they are. And then you see them in a different light, they see you in a different light. So, it's just important that you have, that partner who they're able to grow with you. They're able to take that feedback and criticism. And, you run a business now. Bree, does she work?
She stays at home with the kids. Yeah, her job's tough. Very tough.
Oh, yeah.
My kids are a handful. So
and she does a great job on social. I see her stories all the time.
She does.
I mean, I consider myself a ray of sunshine, and it seems like Bree is absolutely that to you and the kids. She lives life to the fullest.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And you can see that through the personalities of my children, both dramatically different, but she has such a positive impact on their lives already, and they're 5 and 3. So
yeah. I think and the biggest thing for our listeners to learn there, right, is when you run into obstacles, whether it be the upbringing or whatever, you got to learn from that type of stuff. And I brought it up in other episodes that the people who fail a lot of the times, it's because they run into the same issue and they keep making that same mistake. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to an episode of, I think it was Priscilla or Jocko, one of them. And he was talking about, no matter like what you go through, at the end of the day, like at that time, it's on you. Mm-hmm. So, it's how I react to this bad upbringing. I could keep blaming it on that, and going down that same, avenue, but like, it's not going to do anything for me. Right. So, you got to learn from those types of things. And you brought up my mom and everything. I have a great relationship with my mother, as Justin does. A lot of the listeners saw that on the episode. But I faced adversity when I was younger. I had a son, which I've brought up before, when I was 19. So super young.
That's young.
It was a lot. Yeah. But I learned a ton through it, like after me and his mother separated, which I was only in my early 20s. There were so many lessons that like I took from that, and to your point with making sure that your better half is your better half, right? And these are the traits that I want to look at. I want to make sure, there's a great family behind her. I want to make sure that she's going to be a great mother to my children, and what she is. And it's kind of common here, I guess, that they're all, for the most part, stay-at-home moms, mm-hmm. all of our wives. And, I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, I think, we kind of looked for those traits of being a good mother and saw that. And, I'm sure you all say, you just said about your wife, like my wife's the best mother in the world. She's with the kids 24/7. And to your point, it's like the most difficult job. I'm home on a Saturday. You do a lot of the crazy stuff, go to the shore with like 4 kids by yourself, but
it makes it look so easy.
I know. I'm just home and I'm like, call my wife after 2 hours, like, yo, you got to get home. And I can imagine every day, but just the biggest takeaway there is you got to learn from your mistakes,
That and finding the positives in everything. Mm-hmm. Because I had a coach that always said, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, if you sit at a table with 10 people and everyone shares their situation, you wouldn't change yours based off how good or bad other people's situations are. And I was fortunate. I had a father and mother growing up. My dad was, he was great and a great provider and very good at sports, and helped my brother and I and my sister in playing sports and developing and athletically. And my mom just had her situation, but I was still blessed to have a mother growing up, because I know a ton of people who have no parents, who, one passed when they were younger, and teammates that come from very tough situations. So to look at it, from a positive perspective, I had 2 parents that did love me, and things change, things happen, but you can either decide, I'm going to be a victim and complain about it, and that's going to decide my future, or you can learn from it, adjust, just as you said, Tyler, and move forward. Yeah. So just trying to really take the positives out of certain situations.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of athletics, so let's touch a little bit on the collegiate career, and not so much like stats or anything like that, but you were the captain of the team. Yeah, played Toledo. That's big time football. Tell us, like, what were some of the lessons you had learned being a collegiate athlete at that level, and has any of that transitioned into who you are today?
Oh, a ton of it. And this could be an entire podcast. You and I could talk football.
Oh yeah.
And I was privileged to be on a very terrible team at the University of Toledo and a very good team. So I saw the dynamics of, well, what does it take to be absolutely god-awful in the MAC? And what does it take to actually have a chance to win a MAC championship and play in multiple bowl games? And it started when I came in. They recently won the MAC championship. Some of those players started to graduate and trickle out of the program, if you will. And the coach was there for many years. And I guess it kind of got stagnant. You think, oh, we're good. We're one of the best teams in the MAC. So we'll continue to be that way. And then the work kind of falls to the wayside. And it doesn't work like that. And especially football, it's a very unforgiving sport, as you know. Mm-hmm. So my freshman and sophomore year, my freshman year, we won 3 games. They fired the coach 6 games into the season. And he was there for 15 years prior. So our interim coach was the D coordinator. And then we hired a guy who came over from, he was with Oklahoma State. He was the D coordinator there. And he absolutely changed the program. Now, in a good way, but there were also things that weren't great as well. But in terms of getting wins, accountability was his main thing. And when we were 3-9, we had great players. We just had guys who were ineligible because they didn't go to class. People fighting at practice, thinking that was cool and tough. Mm-hmm. People blowing assignments. Our discipline was terrible. All those things add up, especially when you're in close games. So that started to diminish as soon as this coach came in. It was you were accountable, you went to class, everyone was eligible. And if you weren't, you didn't just pay for it. Whatever position you were with paid for it. So your teammates started to get on you. And you guys have all played sports. You really know you're doing something right when the leadership comes down from your peers and those that are playing. So he asked a lot from the seniors and juniors and essentially the starters. So they took the brunt of any consequences that happened if we had guys not doing the right things. Maybe a little bit to the extreme, but when you play in those conferences, you don't, and I'm just being honest, they don't make a career there. They want to go to the SEC. They want to play the Big Ten. They want to play, so let's go win 10, 11 games, win a bowl game, and pay me millions of dollars to go be a head coach elsewhere. So I had the chance to see there's a lot that goes into being successful, and a lot of it is sacrifice and just being accountable and being honest with yourself. And there's good ways to do it and ways that aren't so good. But in terms of how that has helped me in my professional career, I try and take that as the blueprint that you got to be accountable to yourself. You have to be honest, and you have to have good teammates. I am almost always the stupidest person in the room when it comes to the guys I'm around. Is it strenuous? Yes. Do I tend to be quiet a lot? Yes, because I'm just trying to hear how they're positioning things, their thoughts, their perspective on the situation. And all of our business is referral based. We're like we said before, I deal with estate planning attorneys, CPAs, wealth advisors, and we're just a small piece of the portfolio at the end of the day. But surrounding yourself with people to push you, being accountable, being on a good team, and really being honest and genuine to your clients and wanting to help your clients has really, really helped me in my professional career. And that's the cornerstone, I would say, that I've taken from playing football at that level.
Yeah, I love that. And for the folks who haven't played at that level or just haven't played organized sports, I mean, you can kind of capture that if you're watching Coach Prime and what's going on in Colorado. Right?
Man.
I mean,
I love it.
I mean, I think that program won 1 game last year.
We played Colorado my sophomore year.
Okay.
And we weren't good. We won 5 games that year. We beat them by 40 points.
Wow.
They came into our place and we absolutely whacked them. And now they're legit.
Nebraska,
They have players on that team.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know his son was that good.
Oh, me neither.
Both of them.
Yeah.
The quarterback or the corner. I mean,
the quarterback, man.
The quarterback.
I didn't know he was that good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything with drafts wise or anything, but I'm sure he'll probably go to the NFL.
Yeah, I would assume so. That'll be the thing in probably another year is like, does he stay and continue to play with his father and try to build this? I mean, they don't need the money in that family, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
the point is, though, is the accountability, right? Like he came in, everybody has, I mean, it's a viral line. You know, I'm bringing my luggage and it's Louis, right? Like he was like, if you're not ready to commit, and he said, he was like, some of y'all ain't going to make it. And that's what, if you watch like the Swamp Kings thing on Netflix with Florida in the day, like they were like, dude, they were trained. Like I wasn't trying to go to Iraq. I was trying to play football, but that's kind of how you weed people out, right? And like who really wants to be here compared to who just wants to live the lifestyle and the image, right? Like if you watch the Johnny Football thing in the same regard, he just wanted to live the image. He was never, you know, they said
I just watched that
0 hours on his NFL laptop.
It was sad, but it was good.
It was. It was like, what an athlete, so much potential, but he just had people around him that never held him accountable. Right. So he never had to develop. He was never challenged. People were bailing him out of things all the time. And now look at him. He was to the point, he says, and he was suicidal for a while. He blew like $5 million in a year, spiraled out of control. And that's what a lack of accountability can do. There's two completely separate stories, two different universities, and completely different outcomes. And you see with Deion now, it's like, I was having this debate with somebody the other day. I was like, does he stay at Colorado and try to win a few rings in bowl games to just put them on the map? Or does he try to, like you said, get into the USC, Ohio State's, Florida? But I don't know that he needs to do that. Like those schools already have the legacy, the prestige. For Coach Prime to really like take a school, I mean, the HBUs would have been so hard for him to do that with, to really compete on that national level. But Colorado is like, that could be it. And just the recruiting classes he brings, like, you see he's got Warren Sapp, Michael Irvin, like all these ex-pros that come in. You know he's going to bring the pro days. I mean, their endowment, I'm sure, has like tripled already this year. The amount of money, just like the Sanders, like having a 21 Sanders jersey again on the market for his son that's the safety, or I think he's a corner. It's crazy to see what one man with accountability, with mindset, with an actual game plan and action, what that can accomplish.
That's prime time, baby. I don't know. I haven't followed Deion. I would watch Deion highlights all the time. Arguably the best defensive player, athlete on the football field. Maybe Bo Jackson in comparability, but
Bo is so much better at baseball. We'll never see an athlete be a two-sport athlete.
But Deion made it look like he was just playing pickup football in the backyard against, in the NFL, pitching laterals on interceptions and stuff. But I haven't followed him enough aside from just watching his highlights that I don't know what his next move would be. That's a really good question because a lot has changed in the NCAA with football just based off the money they're allowed to make now as well. The transfer portal, which I always felt is kind of okay because, I've been part of teams where you have a head coach that comes into a program, sits in your living room, with the parents of this recruit and says, I'm going to see your son graduate, this and that. And then the next, it could be 3-4 games, they get an offer to go coach at Illinois, and it's like, I'm out of here. See ya.
Right.
But if a kid wanted to transfer, you're going to have to sit out a year. Like, I'm okay with that. Now, does it affect the camaraderie of coming in with your freshman class and then seeing it through? Does it like alleviate that pressure of, well, if I'm second string and I know I'm not going to play, I'm going to kick rocks and go elsewhere? Yeah, it does diminish that a bit, but it does give more opportunity and make it more similar to what coaches are able to do, making it more aligned with the players. And it is a full-time job. 100. It's you're going to class, you're scheduling your workouts, 5, 6 a.m., you're working out, and then you have to schedule your classes either super early or super late because you're in the facility for 6 hours straight watching film, practicing, getting your rehab. So, and then if you're traveling, you're leaving on a Thursday, you're getting back Sunday if you're traveling across to the West Coast or something, or wherever you're going. So it's definitely I think the way they're doing it is great. The way they're doing it, I don't know how that's going to pan out over the years.
I think we both shared that post. I think I saw it on your timeline as well of just what the daily structure and itinerary was for a D1 athlete. And people don't realize that. Like going to school at Wagner, we had a lot of kids that were local and just had money. And they would always be like, oh, you athletes, you got your full rides, like you get this and
Basket
that.
weaving class,
Yeah,
whatever
but
you
you're
know, they
like, look,
say.
I still, to your
rock
point,
climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, we might be traveling to the West Coast, but like, I still got to turn in those assignments. I have to do them on my
Yeah.
laptop on flights. And to your point, like we're working beyond a full-time job. Like
Easy.
40 hours a week that would be a cakewalk, but that's not. They got every single penny of our scholarships out of us and some. So it does really teach you the disciplines, and I wasn't ready for that when I was in college, and that's why I messed up academically. I couldn't balance it, and too many of my coaches told me I had the attributes to go to the NFL, and I thought I was at Ohio State, and I was going to be the guy who just kind of passed through, and I wasn't. I was at a 1AA school, and it was like, no, bro, you got to earn every single day, the right to step back on a field and play, and that was a huge awakening for me, and it was the first time, honestly, like I ever got punched in the face, but it was a lesson I needed. I wouldn't be who I am today. I would have been Johnny Football. I'd have been the guy that everybody just never held accountable and would have blown money. And I like to have fun. So I can only imagine what that would have been like.
It's positive you learned that lesson early on.
Agreed.
That's
literally one of the best things at 18. It was super embarrassing to come back home, go to community college, work for Hallmark. It was definitely not the highest point of my life. But looking back, my mother used to say when we started the business that was one of her best memories of me. And I always was like, man, what a backhanded compliment that is. And she said it in front of our staff. And I remember being so embarrassed. But, now seeing it as a parent, I'm like, for her, it had to have been hard to allow me to fail.
It had to be really hard.
Like I can't even, really for years, I never even thought about that perspective of like, what it feels like to let your kid fall, break their leg basically and just say, hey, you gotta learn that lesson, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back in there, and not try to cushion me, not try to catch me, not even try to help me up. Just this is you.
Yeah,
and that's real love. I think too many times, we always as parents we want to protect our kids and set them up for all the things, but we almost cut them off at the knees if we don't allow them to experience certain things on their own and make the mistake. I think we're probably all fortunate in the business world where, because we have mentors, we're able to learn lessons from them, from their mistakes.
Yeah.
But I know a ton of people who hear that, but until they actually feel the pain and they go through it, they can't learn the lesson. And I think that's kind of what that taught me. I never want to feel that pain again. So when I hear these lessons from other people, I'm like, I'm going to jot that down because that hurdle hasn't come in my life. But when it does, I know I can refer to this and, clear it rather than stumble through it.
Yeah. Your mom gets it. That's
I was very blessed with that, with both my parents in that regard.
Yeah, and having a mentor is super important. But now, more than ever, just with the internet, you can learn so much. You can listen to Jocko every day. You can listen to these Maxwell. You listen to so many different people. Where it's definitely important to have a mentor, but don't let that stop you from learning. And but to your point, you do have to go through a lot of that, because you can, like anything, someone tells you they're sick, you don't think really anything of it. But when you're sick, it's the worst thing ever, right?
Yeah.
So you don't understand unless you're either going through it or have experienced it in the past. You got to go through that to kind of learn. And again, but you're looking back and remembering. You're not just forgetting and going back into that same, mistake, kind of like I was saying, earlier.
That's such a good, you brought up the learning, and I'm new to social media. I got on Instagram and Facebook last year because we created our podcast and we needed platforms to get on it. And I'm extremely new and extremely green when it comes to social media. And the information on these platforms that you can digest over a short period of time is crazy.
It's wild.
It really is wild. I can also see how people get consumed with it. And, and it's, to your point, experiencing it though. I've worked with people who may get their information from some of these platforms, or they read about it, so they essentially know about it. And until you've been in a specific situation where you've had to experience how the actual process goes versus just reading it, I think that's something to just keep an eye on, because you can learn a lot, but being physically involved with certain engagements, I think, and feeling it and seeing how that unwinds can be more beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. And, to that same point, it's great though, because it can help educate you. Like, so for an example, this past year I started flipping houses on the side, and, watching videos and YouTube gave me the confidence to be able to do it myself.
Yeah.
Now I'm learning literally daily, like, oh, this permit, this, whatever it is. But I probably would have never made that step unless I saw 500 videos of people like, yeah, this is what I do. This is how I do it. Granted, I try to use that, but I'm still learning. I'm still running into problems and issues that I didn't hear in a video, or maybe I did, I forget it.
Yeah.
But it gave me that initial jump. And that's the thing with the internet in that how people are educating themselves. And, more than ever, there's so many house flippers. There are so many people investing. Back 30 years ago, like, investing in stocks was like something rich people do.
Mm-hmm.
like that was like something like, your grandpa did. He's got, 100 shares of IBM or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
You didn't even think nothing of it. But now,
So
because you learn so much, Robinhood, all these
I would say the
easy
apps made it
accessibility
easy.
is helping people educate, all those different things. And it probably translates to your industry with like life insurance. And I got to imagine somewhat, someone 30 years ago probably didn't even know what, like, you would have to explain to them what life insurance is.
Yeah.
Whereas, now they probably at least have an understanding, or maybe just a little grasp, or even know of it.
Oh, they know more than me.
Right. To be able to get it. Probably not. They probably say that. But,
Yeah.
it's getting them introduced to something that, they 30 years ago, they would never been introduced unless they just met you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you can look up anything now and get an idea or have a tutorial. I mean, how do you think we started our podcast? Was
Yeah, it's
how do
crazy.
I start a podcast?
Yep.
And I'm super jealous of your setup.
You'll be
And
interesting.
mine was, we just bought the stuff and set it up wherever we
It's
make
about
shift
getting
wherever we
started.
go and getting
Yeah.
started.
It's
Like,
about
just like
getting
your
started.
story with real estate. That's fantastic. That watching those videos kickstarted the opportunities that you have now. That's great, but then you got to go do it.
You gotta
and
do it.
that's
That's the
the difference. And then experiencing those transactions and dealing with people in each situation is different.
Yeah.
And life insurance. Just to recap on the life insurance part. So there's two. I don't want to go too deep on life insurance because it's a taboo subject to begin with. But there's two types of insurance that are generally placed when it comes to life insurance. So there's insurance that's placed to create wealth or create liquidity. And then the other bucket would be life insurance to preserve wealth or transfer wealth more efficiently. So when we're talking about creating liquidity, it's you have a breadwinner of a household. They may have 4 children. And if something were to happen to that breadwinner, they need liquidity immediately to pay for their expenses, whether it be their mortgage, their kids' education. That's your standard term insurance, 20, 30-year term insurance. Can we do a deeper dive on, which carrier to go with and which type of term insurance from a convertibility standpoint? If you're looking 10, 20 years down the road, am I going to one day want to convert this? There's different carriers that are more suitable and have greater opportunities of the certain products you can convert to at a later date. You could go down that road, but more or less it's more of a transactional sale, and it's a very important sale. But our focus is more aligned on the preservation side at Newton One Advisors. And that is, depending on what my estate is made up of, if it's majority real estate or investments, if I were to pass and my estate is north, the net worth, so everything in my name and in my spouse's name is north of the exemption, which right now it's the highest it's ever been. And I'm rounding, by the way. I'm $26 million using portability for both spouses. So anything north of that, there's a taxation of 40%. So right off the bat, some form of liquidity is going to have to take place unless you have a handful of cash that's sitting there to pay
Which is
for
a
that
lot,
tax.
40% of that number.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anything north.
Yeah.
So 30 million, you're worth 30 million, and most of that's tied up in your business or real estate. Someone is going to have to facilitate that liquidation or sale of those assets to pay that, or another solution maybe. And this isn't always the case, and I can't stress that enough. You'll run into insurance advisors where life insurance is always the solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You have to look at the numbers. Health is a huge factor in this discussion. Again, what are their assets? And then figuring out on the dollar, so the premium amount based to the death benefit, what is the internal rate of return on that? Is that going to be more efficient than liquidating certain assets at a 20-year, 30-year life expectancy? Well, let's look at the numbers and find out. That's where our focus and our resources, being part of the M Financial Group, that's where we make our bed. And that's, I said it earlier, we're like the Navy SEALs of life insurance planning. So
love that.
We're surrounded with and we prefer it this way. Collaboration is key with us. We want the estate planning attorney, the wealth advisor, the CPA, and then when all the ducks are in a row and they need an innovative or somewhat complex life insurance solution, it's usually an M Financial firm, hopefully, someone within our wheelhouse that's going to structure that policy and make sure it's funded appropriately.
Awesome. Now, so being in the industry for a while, I feel like this is something that people like vaguely know about and pretend to know more than they do because it is such a complex thing. What kind of recommendations would you like? What should people look for, in an advisor when they're picking teams like this? Like, what would you say? What are what would you completely stay away? What's the red flag? And then what are things to actually look for to ensure that you're investing in the right people?
Yeah. And this isn't earth shattering by any means, what I'm going to say. Having someone who can take a purely agnostic approach when it comes to vetting out the solutions and carriers that you're looking to get involved with. And what do I mean by that? Someone who isn't associated specifically with one carrier or maybe a mutual agency, because they have structured policies that they can only offer. Now, that's not a good or bad thing. It's just there's other options out there that may be more suitable based off your goals and objectives and whatever planning you're going through with right now. So one is, are they completely unbiased and have access to all solutions within the marketplace? Like my dad sells cars. He's a Ford dealer. There's nothing wrong with Ford. I drive a Ford naturally. My whole family drives Fords. But there's other makes out there that, may be more suitable for you. So that's the same in the insurance industry, or at least the way we approach it is having access to all carriers and all solutions. And then someone who I would say can control, or at least to some extent, control the underwriting process. And this is really the art and science behind everything. A team that can informally, and this is unique, but informally underwrite yourself or a business partner or whatever type of solution you're looking for. Someone who can collect all of the information, take it in-house with their actuarials and physicians, and figure out which path to go that's going to be most efficient from a pricing and contractual standpoint. Not everyone can do that. So having the ability to do that is huge, because that way, if there's a red flag, you can halt the process and nothing's documented. And you're not going to be affected ongoing trying to acquire coverage. In some scenarios, the latter would be, we sent your medical records out, here's the declination, and you have a declination on your records, and that's kind of it. So having someone to control that. So being purely agnostic, open market approach, and then having the ability to control the underwriting process once you get to that point. The third piece to this puzzle would be service. Mm-hmm. Full transparency, and you guys probably know this, life insurance contracts and some disability life insurance contracts are very heavily funded up front from a commission standpoint. Mm-hmm. We're talking north of 100%, 110%. So when policies are placed, and this is just from my experience, if I have someone who says, I have a whole life policy, $10 million in coverage, I go, well, where's the current agent who's servicing it? I have no idea. He's probably in Florida. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while. There's crediting rates, whole life dividend interest rates that are associated with these policies. A lot of ours are crediting rates when it's variable policies, index universal life policies that fluctuate like any investment, like your 401ks. You have to monitor this to make sure that whatever we illustrate it once the policy was placed, is it performing close to or better than? Do we have to rebalance the policy? Do we have to restructure it, change the death benefit? And that's not always the case within the insurance industry, unfortunately. So finding someone who specifically focuses on implementing these insurance solutions, then monitoring and servicing them, and has a team that backs that up is extremely important. And that's something that's can deter a policy from getting out to age 100 to it blowing up at age 82 and the client's 80. So those are the three things: an open market approach, underwriting control, and then the management piece of the puzzle when looking at life insurance policies and life insurance planning.
Yeah, and that's super similar to my industry. I'm property and casualty insurance, same kind of thing. And, we're a brokerage, right? So same idea. Where I don't work for State Farm. I don't work for Farmers. I work for the client, which
is fantastic.
Which I'm looking out for their best interest. And I tell people all the time, like, I have no allegiance to Travelers or whoever. I'm just giving you these options and, helping you make that decision. Service with renewals. We're the opposite. We're making a far less commission, but we're making it
continuous,
over,
right?
Yeah, we're making it over, years. And because of that, we have to be very service oriented because you renew next year and maybe you jumped $1,000 and we got to shop you out and, whatever. So it's, our industry, my industry is very similar to yours. And I tell people pretty much the same thing. And, they're like, oh, well, I got State Farm quote. And, I'm like, well, if they're trying to lower your rate, it's because they're trying to lower coverage. That's usually, they only have one option. So, and they're working for that company. Like, they're just trying to sell that company's stuff. Whereas if you go to a broker, and I don't care if it's me or another broker, I just think you should talk to a broker because, they're going to give you the different options. They're going to give you the different coverage options. If you want something cheaper, they could probably get it for you cheaper with a lot more coverage than you just going to Farmers and trying to get it cheaper. So it's very similar to your industry.
Can we take just a small step back? So for folks who, I hear that term all the time, underwriting, can you explain, like, what is underwriting? What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a car analogy. It's looking under the hood to see, an actuarial is going to see, okay, essentially, when is this person predicted to pass away? Is it before age 87 or is it after age 87? And then based off blood work, medications they're on, any medical history, any ailments within the family, any potential genetic disorders that they may pick up on, they're going to figure out, and they're very, very spot on. These are very intelligent people, the actuaries within the life insurance industry, because you got to think, life insurance carriers are extremely profitable.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They definitely know what they're doing. So in turn, they figure out, okay, what should the price be for Mark Singer on this $5 million life insurance policy to age 95? And then based off that, there can be some negotiation based off the relationship of the advisor and the carriers to figure out, okay, well, where should this efficiently be priced to where, one, is it profitable to the insurance carrier? Yeah, but does it adequately insure the insured as well? And that's where we're more on the side of the insured and the applicant to figure out, okay, let's get appropriate pricing, but adequate coverage in place, and then make sure it stays, what we implement initially stays in place for that duration of time without a huge influx of premiums or changes within the contract. And it's a relationship business. And Newton One is part of the M Financial Group. And all that means is we have relationships with commercial carriers, all carriers I'm sure you're familiar with, that structure policies differently based off our book's persistency. We work directly with the carriers. There is no middleman, so the reduction of overhead expenses and paying agents, employee benefits, retirement plans, that's not part of the equation. And then the clientele we tend to deal with, and longevity favors the wealthy, and whether that be non-traditional healthcare avenues, concierge physicians, education, financial means, all of this contributes to longer life expectancy for a certain wealth spectrum. And all of that, along with the reinsurance company that we provide and taking on 50% of the risk of the policies we place, it allows us to have more leverage in negotiating appropriate pricing for our clients with our policies that we're putting in place. But it all stems back to relationships, especially in the underwriting process. So that was a long-winded answer on what does underwriting look like. But having someone that has those relationships is a huge component when looking at these types of solutions for wealth preservation and wealth transfer goals.
So you're that's super interesting, just because I'm in the insurance world, and the reinsurance part, your firm is actually taking on 50% of
M Financial. So correct. So Newton One is one of 142 firms nationally that roll up to the M Financial Group, which was created in 1978 by the four founders. All of their names began with the letter M, like super unoriginal insurance guys. And again, everything I just went over, that was their pitch to the board of insurance carriers. We're dealing with these types of clients. All we do is insurance. We've doubled down on insurance. We don't manage assets. We purely place life insurance policies for estate preservation and wealth transfer purposes. Our persistency is much higher. The size of the policies, it's 8 to 9% larger than industry average, the size of the policies we're placing. Now, the quantities, much smaller. Yeah, much smaller.
Bigger fish.
Correct. But to your point, they decided to create their own reinsurance company because when you get to a spectrum of 10, 20, $30 million life insurance policies, you're usually divvying it up amongst other carriers as well, just from a risk diversification play.
Right.
So they decided to create M Reinsurance, to where if we write a $10 million policy, we're actually taking on $5 million of risk. And in turn, when we're negotiating pricing,
it definitely helps.
It helps because
massively.
Because
you're taking on 50% of
Pacific Life
risk.
isn't taking on $10 million. You're actually taking on $5 million.
Right.
But it's not just that component. That's the other three components I went over that really, the underwriting, the persistency. I mean, our lapse ratio is 63% lower than industry average.
Wow.
So it's
what's the industry? So do you guys use retention as your like key number?
Oh, yeah. Well, so when you're placing term insurance, hopefully you don't have to use it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If you do,
you don't want to use it.
You don't want to use it.
Exactly.
The policies we place, you want to use.
Yeah.
Because estate taxes are going to be due unless they decide to remove it like they did years back, which just fun fact, it is supposed to sunset come 2026. Sunset essentially cut the current exemption in half.
Yeah, I heard
so at
that.
26, it would be 13. And again, I'm using portability for both spouses. So that is supposed to happen. So for those millennials out there that have assets and maybe starting a business and their assets are starting to grow, just be wary of that you may not have an estate tax issue. Yeah, it's proposed to. It never has come down. So this would be the first, but essentially it's written in law right now that it's going to come down. Now, I think a lot of that's will be dependent upon the administration at the time.
Yeah, who's the president? Yeah.
But just a fun fact.
And just to clarify that, so now anything over that 13 million would be at that 40% tax we talked about earlier.
Once it sunsets, correct. Yeah,
wow.
Unless they change that percentage as well, which I don't think that's been proposed.
Yeah, I heard that recently too with the 13 mil.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And
40%. It's a joke.
So in terms of the utilization of term insurance, hopefully you don't use it.
Right.
And it's affordable. If you're, And one thing I would say, so what would you tell those that are listening? If you have expenses, you're starting a family, and you or your spouse are earning an income, and you're essentially living off that, term insurance is so affordable. Talk to an agent and just get something in place. Get $1 million.
Like $100 a month. Right?
Yeah, it's
$50.
Is there like a general just with that? Because I know people who have it, but then I talk to them and they're like, "Yeah, I have 75 grand." I'm like, "How much do you make?" And they're like, "I make 80." I'm like, "So what?" Is there like a standard or like a roundabout multiplier of your annual income that you should have in mind?
I would look, again, we're planners first. So you could look at a multiplier, but how much is your mortgage paid off if you were to pass tomorrow? Who's picking that up?
There's a lot of factors.
What do you have in your qualified assets? Do you have any other homes?
Right.
Do you want to fund your kids' education if you're no longer here? Or are you going to say, you know what, my wife's going to marry someone else and it's going to be there? Like, everyone thinks differently, and I'm not in the business. We're not in the business of convincing them otherwise. We can ask them questions, look at everything on our spreadsheets and say, this is what you should have. Now, if they go with it, great.
They'd be comfortable with it.
And that's the same with the estate plan. These are your assets. This is what they can grow to. Right now, assuming the exemption goes down, this is the tax you'll owe, this chunk right here. This is what a life insurance policy costs right now to tuck into an irrevocable life insurance trust to pay that. Is that cost reasonable and manageable, or are you comfortable with, you know what, we'll let it ride, see what the exemption is, and I won't be here, and my family will liquidate assets if they have to. And we're not here to convince otherwise. We're here to just show them the numbers and allow them to make an educated decision, again, based off all the carriers and solutions we put in front of them.
Yeah. Because I definitely I've been looking more into just the different investments, and insurance does seem, the most like risk mitigated, we'll call it. I just, with the traditional 401ks, simples, things like that, most people aren't doing it Roth, right? They're putting in whatever to at least get their match. Maybe they're putting 10%. But, my big fear is just with the economy, like that number, even though you think you have a couple million in there, could out of nowhere get cut in half.
Yeah.
And then B, taxes don't go down. So you might be paying 60% taxes when we're 65 and taking a draw.
God.
Where like a lot of the insurance policies, some of them have like minimum returns, like where you, again, it's just, it mitigates the risk. And it's really, that's what I'm most like looking for is, the father with 4 kids, like we are all the breadwinners of our families. And like, I want my money to always make money. I don't want it to like maybe make money and then maybe have to pay this huge tax bill, or to your point, leave it to my kids. And they're like, oh, cool, we got 20 million. Shit, we owe 10. So, all right, that got dicey quick, and we don't have quite as much as we thought. So, I think people do need to take a better look at that and sometimes get off of the traditional routes and just educate themselves more.
And I think what you're talking about is, it's a great diversification play. And life insurance can be deceptively complicated. But what it does do, and its advantages are tax efficiency and tax deferral. Max out on your qualified plans if you can. Put that away. Defer. Taxes have gone up, and like you said, what are they going to? No one knows. If you know, let me know.
Right.
But
we'll plan for it.
Yeah. But with life insurance, if structured appropriately, depending on the policy, if you're looking for tax deferral and you're not looking to tap into that cash 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it can be, an extremely valuable tool, because you can then take out income tax-free loans from the policy and withdraw up to the cash basis tax-free. Yeah. So it's a nice piece to the portfolio. Is it oversold? Substantially.
Yeah. So many reps out there.
Yeah.
And with
oh God.
And with solutions that they're good solutions, just not for that.
Yeah.
There's other products out there that are a lot that are more efficient from cash growth and then accessing that cash at a later date, just from an investment standpoint. But it's a great tool when it fits the portfolio and the planning for that particular client or family.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I can't get the 40% tax on the way out. It's like you're paying the taxes, while you're earning that income on your assets and everything. And then you leave it to somebody and they got to pay the taxes again. It's such a joke.
It really is.
There's nothing we can do about it, but it's just, it's crazy. And then people complain about like, oh, I'll tax, the rich. It's like these people may not be when you think of the rich, like you're thinking about the people that, like Elon Musk and everything like this. Like these people aren't that rich and they earned that,
It's the middle market. Yeah, it's not the billionaire. It's
these guys. Right. Yeah. It's so crazy to me. It just drives me nuts.
It's not how much you make. It's how much you keep, right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. I always try to tell people Uncle Sam just got to put his hand in your pocket,
ridiculous.
Not touch the bottom. It's like you got to play the game the right way.
Well, and speaking of like generational wealth, usually the third generation is where if wealth was accumulated, it starts to trickle down statistically. And could that be mismanagement? Could it be taxes? Could it be a business folding? Could it be the economy for that? But I mean, it could be whatever. But if you have the opportunity to at least create some liquidity, to take taxes off the table, that's where proper insurance planning can help.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, to go back to your business, because, again, it's similar to mine. I focus in on property and casualty. I get approached by life guys and all, health guys all the time. I should be doing it, they say, and all that. But kind of similar to your business, we know P&C, especially flood insurance, and that's where we come in at.
That's huge, right?
So what, with you guys doing just life and disability, I guess one, what are your thoughts on the wealth management guy who does it all? And we probably know a ton of them that do, financial planning, they do investments, they do life insurance, they do disability, everything. And then, kind of take it back to your approach of being that specialist in, life life and disability.
Yeah, and I can't speak on their behalf. The jack of all trades, master of none, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're super knowledgeable guys that manage money and place life insurance policies when appropriate. I can just speak on Newton One's behalf and my partner, our founder Tom Hollinger, and our managing partner Steve Target. We deliberately doubled down in the insurance industry and the insurance marketplace for those three reasons. Being part of them is great, but when there is some form of complexity and a client needs a solution for estate preservation purposes, doing that right is a pretty important job within a portfolio. And we doubled down in that because there's not many people swimming in those waters that purely focus on life insurance for those reasons. Now, yeah, you'll run across a financial advisor or an investment guy who says, and I always love this, we're wealth strategists or we're financial planners.
I think I've seen that signature like a thousand times.
You sell life insurance.
Yeah.
Just come out and, you go down the rabbit hole and it's like, well, what you need is this whole life policy. It's like, what were you talking about? I thought you were going to manage my money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say, but we're pretty upfront about that we that's what we do and that's the business we're in. So yeah, I can't speak on them, but I could just say we did it deliberately because we know there's a market out there where we take what we do very seriously, and being part of the M Financial Group, it's worked for 40, 50 plus years. So.
Yeah. There was something about, focusing all your time on one or two things. And back to your point of the jack of all trades and everything, I learned that too early on. I was trying to do, I was a realtor because I had my license. I still have my license, but I was doing all these different things. I run an insurance company at it. And I had to put my real estate license in referral. And I said, I need to just focus on like one piece. And then I took that to the business too of I'm just doing flood. I'm just doing home, like just covering property. Yeah. I'm not going to offer life. I've had thousands of life people. I probably got 2 emails right now that they want to meet me because they want me to start selling life for them because, we have 3,500 clients and it's a big opportunity for someone like that.
That's a big pool.
Yeah. So, but, there's just something about, I think it's to me, it's like, it doesn't come off as genuine. Like if I'm helping you with your flood in your home and then I call you 3 months later, oh, we should do your life too. It's like, does this guy really know with like, especially life insurance, like you're saying with the wealth side of things, like, I know how to cover a homeowner's policy, but like, I'm not going to cover this guy's life. Like I could educate myself on it, but like, how much am I really going to know about it? And it's just, really owning in, and something I heard before, and I forget who did it, was an author, but he said, you got to spend 10,000 hours on your craft to really master it. Yep. Like how can you focus 10,000 hours if you're doing 100 different things?
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
Right.
We can't do it well.
Right.
Unless you're savant.
That's what I was gonna say. It's no coincidence that we're all in industries that are vast, but we all have stayed in a single lane, right? Yeah. Like I could do 37 things as a payroll guy, but we do payroll and taxes.
Yeah.
And then we bring other experts for the HR, the pensions, the benefits, all of that other stuff. Because again, I would rather hyper focus and be the best at this thing and give you the best service and the best knowledge and education, rather than, to your point, just be like, yeah, I know, like I'm pretty good at like these 12 things. Like I'd rather be exceptional at one thing.
Well, that, and from a referral standpoint, if you tell me you're good at 12 things, how am I going to think of Justin Deal of all 12 things when they pop up versus if I know it's payroll, I'm like, I know Justin and his team does that.
Great point.
Or if it's P&C, I know I'm going to Tyler.
Yeah.
If I do LTC, I do disability, I do life insurance, I do property and casualty, I do payroll. What are you going for, Mark?
Tax returns.
Yeah, I do tax returns. I'm also an accountant. Like,
do your bookkeeping.
Which they do. I've seen CPAs that do that.
I
I'm like, what?
I could sell cars. It's like,
and it kills for your point too with the referrals. Like then when you're in these groups, you're kind of like blocking other people out. So like we love to network with people, and I love to have a guy that does the things. Maybe you have 2 or 3 in your roster on the bench. But right, like if you do 12 things, like you're trying to tell me I can't have 11 other people who do it way better than you.
Yeah,
exactly.
So typically now we're getting ready to wrap up. So Tyler usually has a question that he ends it with.
Yeah. So like Justin said, we asked this to really all of our guests. So can you just kind of go over in whether it's your personal life or in your business, a hurdle that you faced and what you learned from it? What was the outcome?
I'm going to go back to football because that's what and it was, I played my freshman year. I wound up starting. Coach was fired. I had a very good freshman year. I thought I was, the man. Our new coach came in, and I wound up splitting time with one of the safeties that came in from a JUCO. And I've never been on the bench ever. And it crushed me to where I remember calling my dad saying, I don't know if I can do this. Because I was just playing special teams at that time. I went from being the man to splitting time. Essentially, he started a few games over me, and it crushed me.
I'm sure.
And the conversation I had with my father, at the end of it, I wound up staying there and just really being accountable, knowing more about the coverages, working my tail off. And I wound up starting the rest of my career. And it was a point where it was like you can either fold,
or outwork.
or outwork. And I still look back at that like, man, I was ready to pitch a tent.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm extremely proud of, and that's something I take in the business world, because we all go through days, months, and you're like, man, this is tough.
Yeah.
But you figure it out, and you do things that put you in the position to win, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. So that would be my response.
Yeah, 100%. It just you facing that adversity, and so many people just quit, and being able to face that. Especially, I'm sure so much pride went into it. That's all you knew your whole life was football, right?
Yeah.
And being able to, look at that and look at it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And it got you to be a starter, like you said, for the next however 3 years, and it sounds like you learned a great lesson with it.
Yeah, nowadays I would have just transferred, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, play for coaches, give you the starting spot.
Go play for Colorado.
We've talked about it
cool.
before. Like, pressure is a privilege, right? And we all have pressure in different ways to be the breadwinner for our families, to be young guys in big industries where we have to walk into rooms and be able to command that respect. And it crumbles some folks. And then for those who think of the discipline and the accountability and the big picture of things, it's that pressure creates diamonds, right? And it allows you to kind of transcend or level up or just become that next version of yourself, rather than just staying comfortable and kind of just going to the wayside and transferring and just, I know I can walk in and play at this school, might not have the same opportunities, but with the ego, I can still be the guy, right? Like, I'm still the man on campus, rather than, damn, can I be the man on campus? Can I outwork this guy? Can I prove to my coach? And obviously, as a captain, you captured all of that.
Yeah. Pressure's a privilege. I like that, Justin. That's good.
Yeah. This guy's always dropping gems.
Yeah.
Guys, hopefully everybody enjoyed this episode. Make sure you'll see Mark's social media posts, or tags, I should say, within the episode. Check out his podcast as well. As you can see, wealth of information. Definitely be ready, because it is that higher education. We are talking money and investments, just with your insurances, things like that, and the overall wealth of you really, and preserving that. So take notes. It's definitely going to be something. There will be follow-up questions. Don't be afraid, like I did. Half the things he said I didn't fully understand. So I said, can you please be a little more clear on that and break it down for the dummies? But Mark, it was an absolute pleasure to have you. We greatly appreciate you, and we'll definitely love to do this again.
Thank you guys so much. This was an honor, and I think you guys, what you're doing is great. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate
you.
Man.
And as always, world, best day ever.
Best day ever, fam.
The material and opinions voiced are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what is appropriate for you, please contact a member of Newton One Advisors.